Hey everyone, welcome back to our SwiftUI series. Today we're diving into gestures in SwiftUI, the perfect way to make your apps interactive and engaging. We're going to explore some built-in gestures like tap, drag, and long press, as well as combine them to build something fun. We're just going to make a little swipeable card stack, Tinder-like basic example app. So let's go ahead and dive on in. I'm going to start a new app project, but of course feel free to include this in any of your projects. And I'm just going to call this gestures example. Make sure we're on SwiftUI, and we should be good to go. Alrighty, so SwiftUI makes adding gestures actually really simple. Let's go ahead and start with the tap gesture and the long press gestures to add the basic interactivity. So I'm just going to delete what we kind of have here within our V stack, and we can go ahead and get started. So I'm going to add two variables. I'm going to have a tap count so we can keep track of how many times the user's pressed on the screen, as well as a true or false statement, whether or not we are tapping for a long time or not. So I'm going to have these be state variables. So I'm going to say at state private variable. We'll call this one tap count. We'll set this to equal 0 for now, and we'll create another one. We'll call it, I guess, long pressed. So at state private variable long pressed. We'll have this equals false to begin with. Now in our VStack, let's go ahead and have some text that kind of dynamically updates as we're tapping. So we'll go ahead and create some text, and I'm just going to say tap count, and then I'm going to interpolate our tap count here. Wonderful. And then we can also have some padding. Let's just stylize it a little bit. We have background color here, so dot background, and we'll do color dot, I don't know. I'm feeling purple, honestly. I'm a big purple fan. We can also change the opacity. I guess that's a little bit hard to see. So I'll do dot opacity and maybe 0.3, just so it's a little bit easier. Yeah, much better, much better. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to say dot on tap with a capital T gesture. And then we're going to use our autofill so we get some code. And we're just going to make the tap count plus equals 1. So we're going to add 1 to the tap count every single time. So adds 1 to tap count on press. So let's go ahead and press on that button. And you can see I'm just clicking right now. If you're using a phone, right, to simulate the clicking, you'd just be, tapping the phone itself. But every time we click on this button, it's going to increment. That's pretty cool. Alrighty, what if we want to do the long press gesture? So let's go ahead and exit our dot on tap gesture. Perfect. We're going to add another text here, and we're going to use our ternary operator to kind of do an if-else statement based on whether the condition is true or false, since we're using a Boolean value. So we're going to do long pressed space question mark space. Then we want what we want to have displayed to the user when it's being long pressed. So I'm going to use long pressed for mine. Then we can kind of use that colon to kind of say else, it's like if this condition's true, display this. If it's false, display that. We're going to say press in a string, press and hold. Great, let's add a little bit of padding. Let's add a background again. I'm going to add a color. I'm going to do red this time. Dot opacity 0.3. Actually, really quickly I apparently forgot a D in my padding. Really quickly in the VStack, I'm just gonna add a little bit of spacing here. So just gonna say spacing, colon 20, and that should kind of spread them out a bit. Maybe I'll do 30, so they're a little bit further apart. Alrighty, and then what we need to do is we need to say, right after the background, we're gonna do dot on long press gesture. We're going to add our braces again, just like we did with the dot on tap gesture. We'll say the long pressed equals true. So this is going to essentially update the state when long press is detected. All right, so let's go ahead and press and hold on our press and hold button here. 1 Mississippi, yeah, so about a second and a half maybe, and then we can now see that it's updated to now say long pressed. Our tap still works, so that's pretty cool there. So here, the on tap gesture increments the counter, and the on long press gesture updates a state variable when it's triggered. Perfect for adding really quick interactivity. Alrighty, well, let's kind of level up here by having a draggable gesture. You can even combine multiple gestures for custom interactions. So I'm going to create a new state variable at the top here underneath our other ones. I'm going to say at state private variable, and I'm going to say offset. And this is going to equal a CG size. So this is a structure that contains width and height values, and we're going to set this to be .0. So this is going to be the size with the widths and height are both 0. So we're setting this to basically, be nothing essentially. Oh, forgot the capital S on my state, and it's causing my Xcode to lag a little bit. Mistakes cause lag. Be careful. All right, let's go ahead and now create some text that we're going to be able to drag around. So underneath my text here, I'm going to create another text box, and I'm going to have this say drag me. You can see our little friend there. And what we can do is add a little bit of style. So let's add some padding here. Let's add a background. If you want to save time, you can copy and paste and then just change the values after. So I'm going to say color.blue.opacity. I think 0.3 looks fine. Let's add some corner radius, because why not? Why not? Might as well make it look cool. All right, next we're going to add the .offset. And we're actually just going to reference the offset value that we created in our state binding. So this is going to apply that to the position. So if our offset is 0, it's going to start it at that beginning location. Right, now let's handle the gesture. We're going to do that by doing dot gesture. We're going to add a bracket here, and we're going to reference now the drag gesture, which is a built-in function here. And from here, we're going to add a little bit of code. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to have the on change. So as we're kind of moving the object during the drag, as well as on end. So we'll have the dot on changed and the dot on ended. So let's go ahead and add our dot on changed. And this is where we can add the code. So I'm going to add a brace here. And I'm going to say gesture in offset equals gesture dot translation. So this is going to be the total translation from the start of the drag gesture to the current event, or kind of where that object currently is. So it's going to update that offset to be where we've kind of moved this object. Cool. So after this brace, we're still in the bracket here. After this brace, we're going to say dot on ended. I'm just going to get rid of that, sorry. Dot on ended. We're going to add another brace here like we did before. Underscore in offset equals dot 0. So that's going to reset it back to kind of, I'll call that neutral position where it was before. So we're going to, with the on changed, update that during the drag, and on ended, it's going to reset the position when it's over. So let's go ahead and start dragging this over. We can see, hey, I can move this wherever I want. I'm going to now let go, and it's going to return to that starting value. So just to summarize one more time, the drag gesture updates the offset state to move the text around during a drag, and it resets once the gesture ends. This is great for any draggable UI elements. Again, you can kind of handle, those different cases. If you move something to a certain spot, maybe some other code happens. All right, let's go ahead and combine everything we've learned to create a swipeable card stack, just like Tinder. I'm actually going to make a new file from the template here. I'm going to create a new SwiftUI view. I'm going to call it Swipeable Card View, just so we can kind of preserve everything else there. Alrighty, so in here we're going to have 3 state variables. We're going to be tracking the offset as we did with our other example. We're going to have a card rotation, and we're going to have an isLiked Boolean value. So let's go ahead and create 3 states here. So my first one is going to be state private variable card offset. Let's have this once again equals CG size dot 0. We'll then create a state private variable for the card rotation. Let's have this equal will be a double, and we'll have it equals 0 for now, just by default. And another state private variable is liked, which is going to be that false, because we're going to have this be a Boolean value. Our VStack's a little bit mad at us right now, but that's okay. We're actually going to replace this VStack with a ZStack instead. So many errors, I apologize. ZStack. Let's go ahead and add that there and watch all of our errors hopefully mysteriously disappear. Oh, actually, I know why these are here. I didn't put them under the structure. I'm gonna Command X and Command V. Even after all this time, still make silly mistakes, but I'm only human after all. Only human. Okay, now with our states under our structure and our Z stack added, let's go ahead and create the cards. We're using the Z stacks because we want those cards to kind of stack on top of one another, right? You kind of think of a deck of cards, those are all kind of layered on top of one another. So let's go ahead and create a rounded rectangle. We can then add some parameters. I'm going to add a corner radius here, and I'm going to set this to maybe be 20. If we don't like that, we can always change it a little bit later. We can then add a fill, and we're going to fill it based on the isLiked category. So if we like it, maybe we'll have it be green. If we don't like it, we're going to have that be red. So we're going to use that same ternary operator as before. So we're going to say isLiked question mark color dot green. We can also have the opacity. Let's try 0.5 here. Then we'll use that colon here, and then we'll say, you know, if we don't like it, then the color will be red. And we'll also have the opacity be 0.5. All right, and we'll make sure that it's kind of cut off there. Alrighty, cool. Let's then add a frame. So this is going to allow us to resize it. We'll say width. Let's have this try 300. Height, let's also give us the value of 300. If you want to change this a little bit, I think with Tinder, it's usually like more of a rectangle. So I'm gonna make mine a little bit different there. Maybe 500. Play around with it. Whatever your heart desires or what looks best to the user, you can do that. All right, let's go ahead and now add an overlay. So I'm gonna say dot overlay, and this is where we can include any of the content. So we're going to have some text. So I'm going to say overlay. I'm just going to add a space here so it's a little bit easier for me. Say text is liked question mark. Then we'll say liked. If not, colon, the else statement, swipe me. All right, cool. And we can see because our current Boolean value is true or false, sorry, we have that red and that swipe me appearing. Create some font here, large title, maybe the foreground color is also white. Just add a little bit of style there so it pops up a little bit more. Ready, now let's handle the offset. So I'm going to do dot offset. So we're outside of that overlay, by the way. So we're going to take that dot offset, and now we're going to reference our card offset that we've created before. So we kind of have that anchor point, that starting position. Let's then add our rotation effect. And this is where we're going to be rotating based on the drag direction. So you'll see as we kind of take this card and move it, you'll see that it kind of rotates one way or the other. I think it's one way or another. Anyways, let's do dot degrees. And then for the degrees, we're going to reference that double we created above, which was called card creation. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and get out of this bracket. So underneath the rotation, we're going to now add our gesture here. We're going to add our bracket, and we're going to have our drag gesture. We're going to close off that. We're calling upon that function, but we're not passing any parameters within there. And we'll do dot on change, just as we did before. Just going to delete these kind of autofill brackets there. We want to brace, you know, we want code to happen. We want something to execute, right? We're going to say gesture in card offset equals gesture dot translation. Cool. We're then going to say, it's going to create a little bit of space here so it's a little bit easier to see. You know, I'll even pop this down here so it's a lot easier to see. We'll then say that the card rotation equals double card offset dot width divided by 20. So this is going to rotate it as it drags. Cool. Let's go ahead and exit this brace here and make a little bit more space so it's easier for us to read. And then we're going to say dot on ended. Another brace here, so we can add some more code. Underscore in. Then from here, we're going to say if ABS. So this is going to return the absolute value of the given number. So ABS. We're going to add a bracket here. We're going to say card offset dot width. Then we're going to exit this bracket. I'm going to say if that is greater than 150, add a brace. So if this goes to a certain position, essentially, we're going to use that to determine whether a card is liked or not. So, you know, you swipe away, you swipe that way. We'll say is liked equals card offset dot width is greater than 0. We're going to exit this brace here. So I'm just going to add a comment. So it's going to determine if liked, disliked. We're going to exit this brace. So this was the one holding the if ABS. We're going to have our card offset equals dot 0. And then we're going to have our card rotation also equals 0. Those are going to reset to defaults. Alrighty, this looks pretty good. I think the only thing we have to change is maybe the frame to have max height, which is infinity. So I would do that right out of our Z stack here. So I'm going to go outside the Z stack. Frame max height. We'll have this colon dot infinity. So this is going to, you know, make sure that we are good to go. Let's go ahead and try swiping our friend here. We can move it around. Okay, we just weren't swiping far enough. Okay, so we can kind of see here if our width gets to a certain point. So I'm going to swipe it all the way to the right. Let's go ahead and change that value down to 100. And again, you can play around with it. 100 might feel a little like too loose, might feel too hard. It's totally up to you. But we can see we can swipe right to like, swipe left. Right? And you can, you know, if you're making an actual stack and things like that of different people, you can handle the code logic here, you know, have that person not appear again. You know, if they're liked, maybe it, you know, sends them a message or something like that. I don't really know how it works. So yeah, I don't know. Anyways, the card uses the drag gesture to detect the swipes and determine whether the user likes or dislikes it. Swipe right to like, left to dislike, and the card will dynamically update. Alrighty, and that's a wrap. Today we explored the gesture system, you know, taking objects, moving them around, as well as, you know, having the long press, so press and hold, and the tap counter. So if you want to have, you know, some extra gestures and kind of interaction there, that's how you can do it. I hope you enjoyed this little quick tutorial, and you know, thanks you so much for watching. And as always, dream big, code bigger, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.